So you're building an app with React. That's awesome. But you've probably hit that point, right? Where you look at the long list of available hooks and you just kind of think, wow, there are a lot of these. It's a super common feeling, that sense of being a little bit overwhelmed by all the tools in the toolbox.
And really, it all boils down to this one simple question. With all these options, how in the world do you know which hook is the right one for the job? It feels like you need a guide, or maybe a map.
And that's the secret. That's the key to really mastering React hooks. It's not about memorizing a giant list of what each one does. It's about seeing how they all fit together. You got to think of it like a map, with different countries and cities, each with its own specific purpose. And once you see that map, well, getting around becomes a whole lot easier.
So, welcome to your guided tour. First, we're going to lay out the whole map. Then, we'll take a trip through the most essential territories, state and effects. After that, we'll explore some more advanced regions, like refs and performance. We'll see how to connect your app's different parts, and finally, we'll peek into the specialist's toolkit for those really specific jobs. All right, let's get into it. Our journey starts with the big picture. You see, pretty much every single hook in React can be sorted into one of 8 major categories. Just understanding these categories is the first huge step to knowing exactly where to look when you need a specific tool. And here it is. This is our master map. You can see how everything groups together so nicely. We've got the fundamentals for managing state and effects. Then there's this cluster for optimizing your app with refs and performance hooks. We've got another group for connecting everything with context and transitions. And finally, a little toolkit of specialized hooks. This, right here, this is the mental model that's going to make everything just click.
Let's start our tour in the most foundational region of our entire map, the hooks that manage state and handle side effects. I mean, this is the absolute bedrock of basically every interactive component you will ever build.
And right smack in the center of that bedrock is useState. Oh man, if you've written any React at all, you know this one. It's the bread and butter of React for a reason. It's simple, it's powerful, and you're going to use it constantly.
So let's just quickly break down its job. The core task of useState is dead simple. Remember a value, and when that value changes, tell React to re-render the component. That's it. And this makes it absolutely perfect for things a user interacts with, tracking what someone's typing in a form, toggling a modal on or off, or just updating a simple counter. You'll be reaching for this one all the time.
But what happens when your state logic starts to get a little complicated? Well, that's when you might look at useState's bigger sibling, useReducer. Here's the key difference. If you have a bunch of different state values that are all related and changed together, useReducer lets you centralize all that logic in one place, which can really clean up your code. For pretty much everything else, though, useState is your guy.
Okay, now let's talk about the other essential category, effects. Before we even look at the hook, we need to be crystal clear on this term. Side effect. It sounds kind of scary, right? But it's just a fancy name for any time your component needs to talk to something outside of the React world. That's it. Like talking to the browser's document title, or a network API, or a video player.
And that brings us to the true purpose of useEffect. Its main job is to synchronize your component with an outside system. Now, a really common mistake is to use it for everything, like fetching data or handling clicks. But honestly, you should do those things in an event handler or with a dedicated library. useEffect is for when your component's state changes and you need to tell the browser's media API to start playing a video. You'll use it, for sure, but probably not as often as you think.
And then we have the specialists. useLayoutEffect is for that super rare case where you need to measure a part of the page after it's rendered, but before the user actually sees it, to stop any weird visual flickering. And useInsertionEffect, you will almost never touch this unless you're literally building a CSS and JS library. So good to know they exist, but don't sweat them. All right, tour's moving on. We are now entering the next region of our map. This is where we find the tools for handling more complex stuff, managing values that don't cause re-renders, and making our apps run faster.
Okay, this next one is one of the most important distinctions to really get. useState versus useRef. It all comes down to one question. Does changing this value need to cause a visual update for the user? If the answer is yes, you use state. If the answer is no, you probably want a ref. A ref is like a little secret box you can keep a value in behind the scenes without triggering a re-render every single time it changes.
So yeah, useRef is your escape hatch from the render cycle. Its two main jobs are:
1. Accessing a DOM element directly, like to focus an input field, or 2. Holding on to some technical value that has nothing to do with the UI, like an ID for a timer. It's a super powerful tool for those specific times when using state would just be overkill.
Next up, performance. Now, useMemo and useCallback look really similar, but their jobs are different. Here's the simplest way to think about it. useMemo is for caching the result of a heavy calculation. It's like telling React, hey, don't recalculate this super complex value unless you absolutely have to. useCallback, on the other hand, caches the function definition itself. That's really useful for making sure child components don't re-render unnecessarily. So one's for values, the other's for functions. Simple as that.
All right, let's explore the hooks that act like the connective tissue for your application. These are the tools that manage how data flows between components that are far apart and how we keep the whole user experience feeling snappy.
First up, meet useContext. Its purpose is simple, but oh my gosh, it's so powerful. It lets any component, no matter how deeply nested, reach up and grab a value from a provider way up in the component tree. This completely gets rid of that painful process we call prop drilling. You know, when you have to pass props down through 5 components that don't even need them just to get data to the 6th one. It's perfect for things like a theme or user login information.
Now for a really cool tool for user experience, use transition. Imagine a user is typing into a search box that has to filter a massive list of data. Without this hook, the UI might freeze up with every single keystroke. Yuck! But by wrapping the state update in start transition, you're basically telling React, hey, this update is important, but keeping the UI responsive is more important. React gets the hint and handles the heavy lifting in the background, so your app stays feeling fast and fluid. It's amazing.
We have reached the final destination on our tour, the Specialist's Toolkit. These are some powerful hooks that solve very specific and sometimes tricky problems. You won't need these every day, but when you do, you'll be so glad you know they exist.
So in this toolkit, we've got useID. Its job is super straightforward: generate a unique, stable ID. This is perfect for accessibility, like linking a label to an input in a form, but, and this is a big but, I need you to hear this, never, ever use it for list keys. That is not what it's for. Then there's useDebugValue, which is a neat little utility that just lets you add custom labels to your own custom hooks, which makes them way easier to find and inspect in the React DevTools.
So there you have it, a map to help you navigate the entire world of React hooks. We've seen the essentials, the advanced tools, the connectors, and the specialists. The landscape isn't a confusing maze anymore, right? It's a structured territory with the right tool for every single job. So the only question left is, now that you have the map, what are you going to build?